I'm Dave with Hamilton Motor Company. We're here with the 2018 Lexus NX, and we're going to be replacing the factory screen with the new Hamilton Motor Company 2018 to 2020 Lexus NX Hamilton conversion kit for CarPlay and Android Auto. This new screen, we make one that covers all the way from 2015 through 2020. And this screen is going to add wired and wireless, beautiful touchscreen CarPlay functionality to your Lexus NX. So even if your car has factory CarPlay, this new 10.25-inch screen is much larger, it's higher resolution, and of course it is touchscreen. It also will work with your original touchpad. So it's going to add a lot of features also beyond just CarPlay and Android Auto. We'll show those to you in another video that we're going to make called the overview. We'll dive in here in this installation video. We'll also have a video that says how to set up audio and CarPlay the first time. We recommend you check those out before using the product. Give us a call. We have North Carolina-based tech support available to help at 919-858-2890. Let's get going. We're going to begin with the vehicle on by setting it to neutral and applying the parking brake. You may also consider chalking the wheels if you're not on an even surface. Anytime you have the vehicle in neutral, be extremely careful around the vehicle. With the vehicle in neutral and powered off, we'll go ahead and disconnect the negative battery cable. Then lift the connector off the terminal and set it aside. The vehicle will start by removing the leather covered trim panels on both the passenger and driver's side. We'll start at the back here. This appears to be a screw, but it is in fact just a decoration. Press away from the center console. We have the center console cover open on the back here while we're doing this. If you need to use a cheap pry tool or a credit card like we have here, you can just grab into one of these seams and pop the trim panel out. We'll set both of these aside. Next, you'll take this small piece here behind the touchpad and pop it loose. It will loosen this trim cover here. Reach over onto this side and remove this small trim cover. Then you can loosen this small cushion rest here. Set both of these with the mirror piece in the back. With the small cushion removed, press firmly down around the gear shift knob and thread it counterclockwise off of the gear shift. Set it in a safe place. We are now going to remove this large leather covered trim piece here that includes the vent. You may need to use a trim pry tool under the bottom the first time and pop it loose, and then you'll separate it from the vehicle. As you can see, this is all one assembly. We need to pop loose this lower trim piece so that we can remove this upper trim piece. You can either reach in with a trim pry tool, or you can simply use your fingers and pop it loose. With this piece loose, use a towel to protect your fingers, and you can pop free the upper piece here. There won't be anything connected in most vehicles. Now I need to remove this trim panel in front of the factory screen. This panel goes in at this angle, so we need to take it out like this. Focus on one side and reach between the seam under here and apply both upward and back pressure. It'll slide free like this. Set it in a safe place. We are now going to remove the two 10mm bolts on either side of the factory screen. As you get them loose, set them in a safe place. With the bolts removed, we will pop the factory screen loose from the trim on both the driver and passenger sides and set it in this position for just a minute as we remove the trim. It's time for us to remove this large metal look-alike trim piece. You can either use a trim tool, like we have here, to get it started on one side, or if you feel comfortable, you can simply use a towel with your hands and pull back firmly, and it will free on one side. Once you've freed it on one side, go ahead and free it on the other side as well. And then negotiate the large trim piece around the factory screen remove it, and we'll set it in a safe place. With the trim pieces removed, we can now remove the center console cover. One of the things I like to do, and I've already touched on this a little bit, I order these cheap microfiber cloths and I cover my hands in them. It'll protect your hands, and the other thing, it will protect your trim pieces from getting scratched. So it allows you to apply a lot more pressure with your hands without cutting yourself. We'll take a hand on either side here of this center console, and I'll reach through, starting in the back, and lift up. We're going to be kind of doing an up and back motion to get this one out here. So we started in the back there. Now we'll pop up in the center. And then what you want to do is you want to almost set the back down, and then we'll take it straight off. We'll leave these wires connected, and we'll go ahead and twist this one and set it to the side here. We'll go ahead and remove these 10mm bolts on either side of the factory radio. I'm using a 10mm socket with an extension here. Set it in a safe place. Remove the bolt, set it in a safe place. Take your hands covered with the towels and pop this upper clock and climate control assembly free. There will be 2 harnesses to disconnect back here. On both of these harnesses, you'll press down on the tab with your thumb and slide them out. We'll set this in a safe place. Cover the gear shift stalk here so that you don't scratch the factory radio. You can cover your hands in the towels. Pop the radio free on both sides and slide it forward. We'll also take the air vent assembly out, grip it on either side, pop it free, set it somewhere safe. We are now going to disconnect the factory screen, lay it down, and disconnect first this blue wire by pressing down on the tab and sliding it back, and then the black one as well. This zip tie, even if you were to ever bail on the Hamilton kit and put your factory one back in, is totally not needed. You can use a knife to very gently cut the zip tie. We used a knife to cut the 2 zip ties here, holding this wire into place. Be careful not to apply too much pressure. You don't want to cut far through the zip tie and mess up your wiring harness. So we just cut the zip tie and then pop it on each of these. Be very careful not to get your hands in the way of the knife. Keep the knife clear of your hands. With both of these cut, we'll go ahead and set this in a safe place. This is for the cars with the touchpad. We're going to have 2 main harnesses that we include in your kit. We call this the Hamilton main harness. We call this the Hamilton accessory harness. I'll give you a quick overview of the wiring we're about to do. This wire is labeled MON power. It's about to go into the back of the new display. These 2 wires that are capped will not be used. This wire labeled monitor is going to plug into the black wire from the back of the factory screen. Coming down here, we have these 2 green wiring connections. We're going to unplug a black and unplug a gray wire from the back of the factory head unit. We're going to plug them into the Hamilton females. We're going to plug the Hamilton males into the back of the factory head unit. Then we have this one labeled touchpad. We're going to run this down through the center console under the touchpad. We're going to disconnect the touchpad wire, plug it in here. We're going to plug this into the back of the touchpad. The accessory harness, we're going to connect it to the back of the new screen. We're not going to use many of these. UART will not be used. AVN will not be used. We'll be using camera and mic. And we're going to connect camera and mic, once we get them in the car, into their corresponding slots on the main Hamilton harness. When you do this in your car, we recommend wrapping these in electrical tape once connected to prevent them from coming undone. Finally, we're going to be using from the Hamilton accessory harness this USB. This USB will be for your wired CarPlay. We generally recommend using wireless CarPlay. It's nice, it's convenient, it's better, but we're going to add this new USB for wired CarPlay. We're going to go ahead and take these 2 main connectors here, and we're going to plug in the camera RCA to the corresponding one here. And we're going to plug in OEM mic to mic. This is between our 2 harnesses. Once again, we recommend you wrap those 2 you just connected in electrical tape. We're now going to get these out up top so they can go into the back of the new screen. We'll run them behind this factory module here. as we pull them through. I'm making sure they have plenty of slack. We'll run this along here. We'll get this one up top. The NX has quite a bit of room to work. We'll take the next one here. Once again, make sure that you're feeding it plenty of slack. You can see here, if you do not electrical tape the camera and mic wires together, they can come undone as you do this. You're pulling them through the dash. So we're going to want this one on top as well. And then the one other one we're going to need on top is going to be this guy here labeled monitor. We're going to go ahead and make that connection. Confirm that camera and mic are still connected. And once we have 1, 2, 3, we will now go ahead and take this blue LVDS adapter and we're going to connect it to this factory blue square plug. This will go into the new Hamilton screen. And use a bit of force to slide free this gray harness. And we'll do the same with the black harness in the middle. So you'll have this black harness that is white on the end, and the gray harness that has this white portion down here. The green Hamilton T labeled CAN, and this black connector from the factory Lexus harness will connect the black factory Lexus connector into the green one labeled CAN. We'll take the male from the T labeled CAN, and it'll plug into the center slot here, where the black one was. Sometimes these don't click all the way down, but make sure it is in there solid. Now locate the one that has the large wires with the green labeled power. This is a T from the Hamilton harness, and the gray factory Lexus connector. Go ahead and plug the gray into the female from the Hamilton harness. And we'll take the male from the Hamilton harness labeled power, and it's going to plug into, if you're facing the dash, this far right slot here that's white. And this is exactly where the gray was when we removed it. And press it in until it clicks. These can be a bit of a tight fit. If you don't hear that pop, but it is in there firmly, you'll know it's good to go. Now we're going to proceed to the touchpad. This gray harness labeled touchpad. And we're going to feed it below these plastic cross members here. You may consider reaching down. And we'll jockey the wire free, and then we'll pull through all the slack. Now, once we have it under here, we're just going to set it aside for a minute, and we'll come back to this after we get the radio back in place. This will be for wired CarPlay. Generally, we recommend wireless. It's going to be the best. You can either feed this into your glove box. You may need to drill a tiny hole. Or you could put it in your center console here. Or we offer to customers, you can run it between the passenger and driver's seat or the driver and center console. We're going to take this one here. We'll pull through enough of the slack as we can without pulling this down. We're going to run this one just like we did the touchpad under this lower plastic piece in here. And we'll pull through all the slack. For this customer, they requested it to be between the passenger seat and the center console. So we'll just go ahead and get this wire into place where we could put it right there for them. Just like that. We'll set it right here, and when we put the pieces back together, it'll pop out right here. One of the unique features of the Hamilton system is our speaker here. This speaker will allow you to mix navigation sounds from Waze or Google Maps with your factory audio channels like satellite radio or FM. It'll connect onto the main Hamilton harness on a little connector labeled speaker. It's a 2-pin connector. Be careful not to mix this up with the one that is not used from the accessory harness labeled UART. So this goes to the main Hamilton harness and just tuck it behind your dash. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove these 4 Phillips head screws. We'll transfer this bracket to the new Hamilton screen. You could also use a socket wrench to do this. I prefer using a large Phillips head screwdriver. As you can see, the screws have a little bit of torque to them, but if you have a large screwdriver, you can easily overcome it. Also, use your fingernail and get under one side of these pink clips and pull them off of each post here. They're very strong. We'll simply move them to the new Hamilton screen and they'll snap right in place. On the new Hamilton screen, we will line up the bracket and go ahead and screw it into place. With the screws in place, we can go ahead and connect the screen. I'll begin connecting the connectors into the new Hamilton screen. We'll have the long connector there, and the short connector for the accessory harness will go here. We'll also take this GPS antenna, plug in the royal blue connector here. And this antenna is going to be for automatic time zones as well as weather apps, things of that nature. Finally, we'll take this light blue square connector, plug it into the corresponding port on the back of the Hamilton screen. We have the new Hamilton screen set in place. We're going to leave it unbolted for just a little bit. And the reason for that is we want to be able to maneuver it around as we reinstall that trim. So we'll go ahead and take the center air vents here, line them up, snap them into place. We'll take the radio, go ahead and gently tuck the wires back behind it. And you'll line up these metal brackets back onto the screw holes and snap the radio into place on both sides. Next, we'll take the climate control panel here. We'll connect black to black, white to white. Line it up into its slots here. And here. We'll line up these clips into the lower ones. It's easy to confuse, but they don't go in here. And it'll snap back in. This is confusing because these clips will be exposed. Remember, this is for that look-alike trim that goes all around here. We have this wiring tee labeled touchpad, and we ran it under the plastic cross members down here and around to the left of the gear shift. We'll disconnect this black connector from the bottom of the touchpad. And this is very important for you to do this. We'll connect the black factory touchpad wire to the Hamilton female. We'll connect the Hamilton female back into the touchpad. We can now reinstall the center console cover. With the touchpad reconnected, we'll take the center console cover, we'll line up the gear shift back over the gear shift stalk, and we will gently reposition the center console cover back onto its factory mounting area. Be gentle up against the radio here as you slot it into place, and make sure it snaps down fully. We've got this USB hanging right where we want it, between the passenger seat and the center console. This is where the customer requested it. You could also put it in the glove box. As well, you could navigate it into this area here. You have a few options for that USB. You could also put it between the driver's seat and the center console. So this is going to be for your new wired CarPlay. We recommend using wireless CarPlay. You don't even have to have the USB at all, but if you want it, this is a fine spot for it right here. We'll now reinstall the two 10mm bolts on either side of the factory radio. We're now going to slide the new Hamilton screen forward. Pop this factory trim piece back into place. Take the Hamilton screen, pop it back into the factory trim. We will reinstall this trim piece and then we can bolt down the Hamilton screen. With this metal look-alike trim surround reinstalled, we can now bolt down the Hamilton screen. With the metal look-alike trim reinstalled, we can now go ahead and bolt down the Hamilton screen. We'll put the 10mm bolts back on either side. I like to start them with my hands. That way there, you won't ever risk damaging the bolt. Then come back with the socket and give it just a tiny little bit of tightening. About a quarter turn. We're now going to take this piece of trim here. We will line it up below the new Hamilton screen and snap it back into place. All of your factory trim, of course, all of our stuff uses your factory microphone as well. So this feels 100% like a factory experience from Lexus. This is a huge upgrade to this vehicle. We're going to now take this large leather covered trim panel here that includes the passenger side vent. And you'll need to line it up on this side first. This plastic has to go on the outside of the lip. Then you can snap it into place across the whole dash. Take this trim panel here. Now we'll line it up into the sockets, press it in on the top and the bottom, and then we can negotiate this lower trim panel back into its spot and snap it into place. I'm going to take this leather covered cushion here, line it back up into its spot, snap it into place in the front and the back. With the cushion snapped into place, take this small trim piece here, line it up on either side and snap it into place. Now take the gear knob, screw it clockwise onto the gear shaft, tighten it and line it up straight, and reconnect the shift boot. Finally, we will reconnect the leather covered trim panels on either side of the center console. We will start from the front and move to the back. Moving to the driver's side, we will repeat the process. Start from the front and press it into place, moving to the back. We have now completed the install inside the vehicle. We left this USB hanging here for wired CarPlay. You don't have to have this at all. You could move it somewhere else, but this customer wanted it between their passenger seat and the center console. Now take the battery cable, line it back up onto the battery post, tighten it onto place, and then use your 10mm socket to tighten it down. And that concludes our installation in the 2018 Lexus NX. We're gonna have a couple other videos on our YouTube channel. Whether you're an Android Auto user or an Apple CarPlay user, these are for you. You're gonna have a video for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto that'll be titled Overview. They'll show you the overview of all the features before you buy the product. If you've already bought and installed the product, we have a video called How to Set Up Audio in Apple CarPlay, or the same video for Android Auto. These will show you how to get everything configured the right way the first time. Of course, if you need us, we're a quick phone call away, 919-858-2890. We also have email, support@hamiltonmotorcompany.com, or a forum on our website for questions.